It's very windy today. I'm here with the Gorge legend Ken Lucas, and we are gonna talk about
high wind winging. Woohoo! Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We have something very exciting with Ken Lucas. We're gonna talk about how to ride in strong wind when you are winging. Ken is very used to it because that's kind of like the condition that you have here in Hood River, which can be very strong, very gusty. It can be like often like 20-25, but with gusts to like over 40. On top of that, you have some like big swell, you have current. So today we're gonna try to get some tips from the legend himself on how to ride in strong wind. We just had a session not too long ago, Ken, where like it was like it probably like gusting to like over 40, and you were out there, killing it, riding the swell. So what would you say like the most important thing is when you see somebody getting into winging and then they wanna go when it's really windy? What would be like the most like common mistake, or what tip would you share?
Well, I do remember that session like it was a week or two ago, and it was gusting to a few times over 50 that day.
Yeah.
So a lot of fun, and good to share that with you. I would say there is no one most important thing when you're stepping into a high wind situation with winging. There's a few things you have to consider, and we can talk about that. And with the safety, of course, there's your, protection. You'll see some wingers that do the freestyle, and they have a helmet on, and because they're doing flips and spinning with their foil, it's pretty dangerous. So most of those guys are wearing helmets, and many riders in normal conditions, with the wing, they're maybe not wearing too much protection. But when you step into a high wind situation, things happen a lot faster, and there's a lot more power in, let's say, if your board has ever turtled on you, where the foil is up and your board's upside down. And it usually, in normal conditions, kind of slow motion, and then maybe falls over in slow motion, and you can duck, hopefully, and make sure it misses you or your wing. But in high wind, that happens fast. If it is going to happen, it's going to be fast. And so, maybe consider more protection, whether it's helmet or, wearing a wetsuit, just for added protection.
And I would also add like make sure that like your leash is in great condition. And in high wind, things happen like a gust comes through, you kind of like were like maneuvering your wing, and then it rips off your hands, and now it's gonna put so much pressure on that leash. It did happen to me during that session or the session after that, and the leash pretty much cannot handle that, so it ripped my leash, it broke it, and my wing was gone. Good thing is, there's a lot of people on the water here, so somebody was able to pin down my wing, and I was able to swim back to it. But that's another thing, is like, make sure that your bird leash and your wing leash is in good condition. You have tested it, and it's gonna work. Something that happened to another guy was he just put the leash, and the knot on the leash, on the bird leash, the knot he made, I guess, was not strong enough. So within 5 minutes, he lost the burn. The knot came undone. Not that the leash broke, just the knot. So that was like something that maybe could have been avoided. So on the gear and on protective equipment, make sure you are dialed in.
Yeah, really good point on the leashes. Yeah, the wrist leash takes a huge load when the wing just snaps out of your hand and then reaches the end of the bungee, just bam!
Yeah.
It can rip off. And I did see on one of your recent videos with Damo, where you guys were interviewing Zane Schweitzer, where he doubles up the little rope that attaches your board to yourself with the leash, the little line there that attaches the leash.
Yeah.
He doubles that up.
Yeah.
And that's a key thing, because let's say your wing, you're out there in big conditions, heavy conditions, and something goes wrong. It's your board that's going to help you get in. The wing might have gotten damaged, whether the bladder blew out or the leash blew off. The board is your safety for a couple reasons. So it's important to put the double up, maybe those lines that hold the leash to the board. But your board is your safety to get you into shore, because in heavy conditions, high winds, if someone is going to assist you, if you're going to count on someone assisting you, well, it better be a solid waterman with a solid boat or skills, because it's heavy conditions. So they need to be able to do that. So, saving yourself is the best thing before you rely on others to help you.
Yeah.
And so make sure your gear's in top condition all around.
So, for example, that day, can you tell us like what gear you were using, and from your foil, your mast size, people like to know that, your burn volume, foot strap, no foot strap, and your wing size?
On that big day, my wing size was my smallest wing, a 2 meter, which is kind of interesting because our body, the outline of our body, the square meter of our body is close to 2 meter. It's like 1.5 or so. So this is almost a 2 right here, you know?
Yeah.
But a 2 meter, and it's still a lot of fabric out there in the really big gusts to, in the 40s and up to 50. It's just will almost get ripped out of your hands, not even when you're sheeted in, just having that big leading edge. So I go with my 2 meter. My board, last year I was using a smaller board. I was kind of forced to, because there was a shortage of boards last year. But so this year I bumped up to one that just floats me, so it's 58 liter, and I'm 58, 60 kilograms, so it just floats. And I've been going strapless, intentionally trying to build my skills. And then, of course, when I add straps, and I go back and forth, but when I add straps, I have a little more control. So I think in heavy conditions and big wind, it's yes or no with the straps. And if you have a tiny board, a sinker board, then straps for sure, because you're just going to have so much more control. And I think board size, sinker, or right at your weight, your float, so it just floats. Either one is going to work and be fine. Just, a beginner board that is many liters, 20, 30 liters larger than your weight. No, that can get tossed around, because just sitting on the water, the wind is hitting, so that very strong wind is hitting the side of it, and it wants to just go and bob around.
But that's the interesting part about the burn. Your burn choice is like, you can ride a sinker burn.
Yeah.
Yet, right now you choose to go on something that's bigger.
Yeah.
And I kind of like agree with that in a way that like, I was like riding a lot of sinker burns, and now I kind of like went back up to that same burn you are using, that 58 liters. And to me, it's kind of like a good compromise between small enough that it feels good when you ride, but then just like gets you that like extra flotation that you need, so that also, regardless of the wing strength, you can ride a smaller wing than maybe you would have with a sinker board, because the sinker board you do need that extra power to get up. So I like that board volume. So now, like, moving on to mast size and your foil.
So here in the gorge, we get a certain type of chop, and it's basically steep and short from one chop to the next, but very steep. And so a lot of us use longer mast to be able to ride smoother in that type of chop. But as the wind picks up in speed, hopefully, and it's not all the times, but it depends on the current and whatnot, hopefully you get these big, smooth rollers, massive size, like the size of freight train cars, but they're smooth. And in that sense, you don't need as long of a mast because the water surface, even though it's blowing 40, is smooth. It's just the nature of the conditions here. That's one of the reasons we love riding in high winds here in the gorge. It's a unique spot on the planet to make these smooth swells when it's blowing really hard. So then you wouldn't need as long of mast. Maybe 80 would be fine. But that day I was using 90 aluminum. I use aluminum mast because that's for that length. It's stiffer.
Yeah.
And it works good for me. And as far as the
front wing,
the foil, I try to use just one for all conditions. It's what I'm trying to focus on, and be dialed in on that one foil for all conditions, and that's the Cabrini High Aspect 1000.
Yeah, that's a very popular one, and we've had Harry Andrews on our YouTube, in our videos like so often. That's also his foil of choice. It's a great foil. I love the 1000 because it's a good compromise between, speed, yet you can go slow with it, and it works really great, and it's stable, and it has really good glide. So for like riding the swell, it's great. I do feel like it's one of my favorite foils for sure.
Yeah, and I use the standard length fuselage and the standard the high aspect stabilizer.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much stock right out of the box, and it's just good all around, and it turns well. So happy in light wind and happy in very strong wind with it.
So then, do you have a couple tips to give for getting up on the bird when you are like the chop is huge, the wind is trying to get you off the bird, you are like sitting on the bird? How do you go from sitting on the bird to getting on your feet and then up on foil?
Okay, so there's no doubt that when it's blowing 40, there's chop and the wind is blowing, it's gusty here in the gorge, and it's more difficult. And maybe not more difficult, but different.
Yeah.
It's not smooth water where you can just climb up on your board, take your time, relax, and pull your wing out of the water and relax, and then get up and go. No, when it's really choppy, and chop that's this big, not little stuff, but big, or maybe 4 foot tall, that's just pounding on you. You have to slow things down in a sense that, go with the flow. Don't try and fight these strong winds, because the wind is going to wind, when it's blowing 40. Don't fight that, but, go with the flow. Be methodical in your movements, and have your, when it's flat conditions, how you get on your board, make sure you're always doing it the same every time, whatever works for you, really dial that in so that when it's choppy and you're getting pounded, you still use that same technique, and maybe the only difference, keep your center of gravity. If you're doing like a knee start, and that's what I do on my 58 liter, I'm able to keep my center of gravity really low. Rather than stand tall on my knees, I'll really squat and get my butt on my heels, and wait for not too long though, because a big wave eventually is going to come and just take you out.
Yeah.
And when it does, just relax. It's just water. Go with it. Don't get hurt, of course, and take your time and get back up on the board. Try not to expend too much energy, just climbing on your board. And then, once you're good to go and you look upwind, you see, oh, there's a little bit of a space where I can, there's no chop. Grab your wing, get it up there, and try to remember, this one I have to remind myself all the time, there's so much wind that just a little tension in the wing is just going to pull you off the board. So remember that, balance from your waist down, balance that board and stand up, and just use the wing, as needed, and don't overdo it. Because it's a tendency when you're getting rocked like this by the swell, when you're going, you're getting up and going, you're getting rocked, is to use the wing to balance yourself. Well, if you balance right, if you pull on the wing right as a big gust comes, you're going to just get yarded. Yeah. So work on balancing from the waist down, especially, when it's you're in those choppy conditions.
Yeah, I think you just gotta put in the time, and you have to master, your skills in more friendly condition. Really, you have to be able to, when you get to this day when it's blowing, over 40, you have to have a lot of experience with days when it's just like a steady 20 or 15 to 20, and that's gonna build, like you said, like the memory, like the movement. You don't even have to think about it, and you're gonna be able to like do it in a much more like calm manner, not be like, because for sure when it's gonna be 40, it's gonna be like you're gonna be like all excited and like adrenaline and stuff. But no, you want to stay calm, and you want to do what you do, what you know how to do, and that's only gonna come with putting in the time before going in this kind of condition. Actually, when it gets very windy here, something interesting is we start seeing more windsurfers, less wing foilers. So that gets us to your point of like more isn't always better, and especially when we, in this case we talk about winging, is more better. If we get 60 knots, is it better than 40?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. In winging is definitely a more flowing sport compared to windsurfing, which is very high impact,
very powerful,
where the board is slapping on the water very fast. And kiting is a sport where there's a lot of adrenaline, where you jump huge, and so it's more, winging is more flowing.
That's why you shouldn't like fight it, because where like maybe windsurfing is a bit more of like force, opposition, speed. Like you said, winging is flow, and if you mean flow, it means no fighting. It means working with it, not working against it.
Yeah, go with the flow. It's a good policy. We got a river here flowing by us. Don't fight it.
Yeah, and it's really like the best riders, when you see foiling, it's always that. It doesn't seem like they are fighting ever. They don't make a sharp turn. Everything seems to flow together without losing speed, and I think that's one of the key of foiling, is being able to like find lines. You can do tight turn if you are able to keep your speed out of the turn and have to pump, otherwise you are kind of like fighting against it.
Yeah, and that fighting, we don't want to battle the wind. We're out there to enjoy the wind, and another reason to go with the flow. And the high wind, just because it's 40, it sounds bigger and better, or 50, 60 mile an hour winds, that doesn't mean it's better. And that flow state, all the winging gear, it's more for gentler wind. it's exciting to go in a stronger wind, and it's different, but it's not necessarily better.
Yeah. So now what we like to do is leave people on a good note. And so what would you say, we all want to be getting to, your age. I don't know if you want to share your age or not, but we all want to...
Ageless.
Yeah, well, that's it. So we all want to be ageless and keep riding the way you do. So what is the secret? What can you share with people so that we can all ride like you when we grow older?
Well, a few things. One is don't give up. We were talking about high wind and getting up on the board, and you get knocked over, and slow down. Don't try and rush through the life or getting up on your board. Just take it easy, breathe. The other thing is help from one another. We don't go through life solo. We're born on our own, but then we're in a community, and the winging community, if we all see that, there's so much help. Everyone offers help, everyone gives help. It's awesome. I really love it, and that helps you also. Don't be afraid to ask people for help or tips or anything. There's so much camaraderie in winging. It's one of the best parts of the sport.
Yeah. I mean, why we make these videos is because we know there are people out there that maybe riding in a place where there is maybe not that community, because maybe it's a lake in the middle of nowhere and they are the only one winging, or so we want to be that community for you. That's why we keep making videos. That's why we keep bringing on more people, more legends like Ken, to share and kind of create that community for you. If you don't have that, here is the Mecca, and I definitely recommend any one of you to come on the trip here in the summer to Hood River, because the community is amazing, the condition is amazing. To me, that is winging paradise. So thank you so much for sharing all of that with us, Ken. And on that note, we hope you guys are going out there, killing it, putting in the time, having fun, and we will see you next week.
All right, thanks, Gwen.